My name is Frank Walker. I was born May 23rd, 1967, with Prune belly syndrome, including a complete lack of abdominal wall. Other complications and necessary surgeries ensued during early childhood, mostly relating to kidney and other urological issues. Diagnosis was very grim at birth and throughout early childhood, and according to some medical professionals, I was not expected to survive. I suffered from pneumonia 4 times within the first 4 years of life, with one time being nearly fatal. I honestly don't remember a lot of my hospital stays. Some I do, the earliest being in an oxygen tent at age 6. But I do know that there were several of them. I was told my first Christmas was spent in New York Hospital in New York City, which is now NYU Hospital, but luckily I kept on beating the odds. What I remember more than anything else was the social side, growing up having Prune belly syndrome. I always had to be protected, wearing a very uncomfortable Velcro binder around my waist to keep my stomach protected, especially in school where most kids couldn't understand what was happening. Most kids were sympathetic, some weren't. I wasn't allowed to participate in anything physical due to my limitations, so during phys ed classes, I would sit against the wall, watching my friends participate in activities. I was jealous of them being able to do that. They were jealous of me for getting special attention. Looking back on it as an adult, I see that it's not a big issue, but at that point in my life, wanting to just be one of the gang, it was devastating. At 9 years old, I started to develop some musical skills in elementary school, where I took violin and choir lessons. Wind instruments were not an option due to my breathing issues caused by Prune belly syndrome. And in a local church folk group, starting out as a singer, then graduating to tambourine player, and eventually to guitar and piano. During 7th grade, I was walking with a friend of mine through a crowded hallway between classes at my junior high school. I was always very cautious walking through crowds, and it was probably very visibly obvious to anyone noticing, but it was necessary. I was talking to my friend, looking to my right at him, when I felt a very hard blow to my stomach. Someone, I never found out who, just randomly punched me. I went down, unable to breathe at all, was rushed to the school nurse and sent home. I went to my pediatrician for x-rays and saw that my left midsection was bruised. My doctor told me that if the punch had been directly centered, I'd be dead. Around the same time, I also had severe scoliosis caused by Prune belly syndrome, and had to wear a brace from my neck to my hips almost throughout all of 8th grade. The brace was a very uncomfortable apparatus to wear and made sitting in the typical wooden desk impossible, due to a large metallic beam in the front holding all the pieces together. At 14 years old, I started playing music in school talent shows and the like, and gradually found a niche where I'd feel accepted among my peers. In 1982, my doctors found a surgeon at Nassau Hospital, which is now Winthrop Hospital in Mineola, New York, named Dr. Ralph Gurr, who specialized in, among other things, breakthrough surgical methods such as muscle transpositions for ulcer patients and accident victims. He was somewhat familiar with Prune belly syndrome. So we meet, he takes several pictures of my stomach area, and after several visits, he is convinced that he can perform abdominal surgery on me. He had me do a lot of bicycle riding and walking to build up one of 4 thigh muscles, or quadriceps, from each leg that I would not miss. He would graft those muscles into the stomach area to act as a 95% replacement for the missing abdominal muscles. His surgical assistant was a gentleman named Dr. Elliot Dubois. The surgery, which was performed on August 18, 1982, was a success, and Dr. Gurr took several more pictures just after the surgery. Ever since, I have really not felt any of the effects of Prune belly syndrome that I did prior to the surgery. I try to live a very happy life as a musician, with lots of amazing, loving, and supportive people around me, and I hope I do the same for them. In 1998, Dr. Gurr and I met up again. At that point, he was chief surgeon at Nassau University Medical Center in East Meadow, New York. He asked me to meet him at the hospital to do a series of follow-up tests. He had me do x-rays, sit-ups, leg lifts, and the works, and took new pictures. He was beside himself at how well I was doing, and he had to actually remind me that I was incapable of doing all the things he asked me to do for these tests prior to the surgery. I had forgotten. He even x-rayed my back to see how my scoliosis was. I brought in an x-ray from 1982, after wearing the brace for the year, to compare the two, and they were identical. Dr. Gurr then took all the information and pictures he had gathered on me since 1982 and wrote an article about the surgery for the medical journal Clinical Anatomy. For over 25 years, my surgery was the only corrective muscular transition done for prune belly purposes. In November 2006, the Prune Belly Syndrome Network became aware of a family in Dallas, Texas, whose 7-year-old son had an operation nearly identical to mine, but at 18 months old, where mine was at 15 years old. The surgeon is Dr. Jeffrey Fearon from Dallas, Texas. My doctors were uncertain if the surgery could be performed at an age much younger than my own, due to questions concerning growth of transposed muscle, although Dr. Gurr had found that worked on young dogs. Dr. Fearon was aware of Dr. Gurr's article on my surgery and expanded on the idea, feeling that it should work no matter what age of the patient. He was successful and has since performed several other muscle transposition surgeries in Dallas on young Prune Belly Syndrome patients. The surgery has literally changed my life, and I highly recommend anyone capable of having it done to look into it. My uncertain days of daily up and down life with Prune Belly Syndrome are thankfully behind me. Through this surgery, my abdominal wall was 95% corrected when I was 15. I have the amazing, lucky, and blessed opportunity to look back at what my life used to be for the longest time. I took advantage of it and practically forgot about it until I found the Prune Belly Syndrome Network and its members. Their website is www.prunebelly.org. When I found this website in 1997, I contacted the originator, Brian Byrne, who has since passed on. I gave him all this information, and he was beside himself upon hearing about it. I even asked him why Prune Belly Syndrome is not commonly heard of by the general public like a Parkinson's disease. He said because Prune Belly Syndrome does not have a celebrity like Michael J. Fox to come out and say, "I have this." Only then will media and the like be willing to learn about it. This website reminded me of my previous life and showed me that people still deal with Prune Belly Syndrome just as much as, and in many cases more so than I did back then. I hope that my personal Prune Belly Syndrome outcome can help other people's outcomes as well, and I'm here to help make that happen however I can. I want every Prune Belly Syndrome child and adult to have at least the same opportunities that I've had. In 2002, I wrote to the Muscular Dystrophy Association, which Jerry Lewis famously hosted his annual telethons for years. And I asked them to consider including Prune Belly Syndrome as one of the over 40 muscular conditions they cover and research. After some brief research, they politely declined, saying it is not the same kind of muscular conditions they work with. But I can't help wondering, if we have enough public support behind us, would they reconsider at some point? They usually break their own fundraising records each year, and usually in the $60 million range. Any portion of that would greatly help the Prune Belly Syndrome Network. I never met another person with Prune Belly Syndrome until I was 35, and now I know many that I call family. All of us at some point in our lives felt like we were alone, and no one understood what our daily lives were like until we found this website. I wrote a song in 2003 with that in mind, called Not the Only One. And it's a song that we sell on the Prune Belly Syndrome Network, which is, again, prunebelly.org. Thank you for listening, and please visit the website and help us out any way you can. Thank you very much.